Back-to-back series wins and a pretty nice homestand for Dan Wilson to start out his tenure as Mariners manager. What is up? What is going on, everybody? Welcome back and welcome into the Seattle Mariners post-game recap. Mariners defeat the Rays this afternoon 6-2. They improved to 68 and 66 on the season. Houston does win, so they will remain 3.5 back in the American League West. Minnesota lost, or looks like they're about to lose. 4.5 back in the wild card race. Something to keep an eye on. A little trickier with the wild card. Mariners have to leapfrog Boston and do not have the tiebreaker against Minnesota. But always good to keep an eye on it and keep the options open. Before I dive any further, as always, do me a favor, hit that like button. It helps out a lot. So if you guys can do that, appreciate it. Comment your thoughts on the game, the series down below. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you are new or lurking. Mariners finish up a nice homestand. They go 4-2. They do what they got to do. You know, you win series. It's really all I can ask. Now, I think if they're going to want to get into this thing, whether it be division or wild card, they're going to have a sweep. They're going to have to probably rattle off like an 8 out of 10 stretch. 4-2 is nice. And listen, you do that a few times. That's 8-4. You know what I mean? It'll add up. But I do think they're going to have to rattle off not like a substantial winning streak, but probably, like I said, you know, this road trip is a 10-game trip, like a 7-3 trip. They need something big if they want to get in here. And I think it's going to take one more really good hot streak. This is a good start. It's a good start. It's a nice series for the Mariners. And a nice way to finish it. And the team is certainly playing better. And regardless of what the final outcome is, it's nice to see them play better. I've always said, like, you know, I'd certainly rather the Mariners win and the Astros win than the Mariners lose and the Astros lose. At least you're going down fighting. You're going down winning. You know, I'll reiterate, not where we wanted this team to be, certainly after June when they had a 10-game lead, but it's where they're at now. It's their path to the playoffs. It is still attainable. They just got to keep playing good ball, and hopefully, you know, Minnesota or Houston slip up, and you got a chance to get in. So it is still there for them, and they're making up. You know, they made up one game over the Giants series, made up one game in the Tampa series. Just got to kind of nip away as best as you can. So this was a good series today for the Mariners and a good finish. The bats come alive. You get a little small ball there to tie the game early on with the Luke Raley sac fly. I think it was after Dylan Moore doubled, I believe. Polanco moved him over with a fly ball. Raley scores him. That was good to see. That honestly, that's a situation where this team has just been atrocious. I feel like, at least, is the situational hitting. Now, I'm not a huge situational hitting guy. Like, you know, I think it's one of those things where you always feel like the bad teams don't do it well and the good teams do. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know exactly how they've been situationally, but it does feel like they've struggled in those spots to move the runner to third and then just get them home, get that run in. So it's nice to see them do that. Castillo was solid, and they used the long ball, right? Which we knew the Mariners, you know, that was kind of going to be the MO, some walks, some long balls. And everybody in the outfield, Randy, Victor Robles, and Julio all go deep today. So good to see that crew finally get to play together. I know they did last night as well, but, you know, consistently here getting some at-bats together and doing damage. Again, kind of the way the Mariners are designed to win. Good starting pitching, bullpen holds it down, offense runs into a few, and you find a way to manufacture a run. So we've seen a little bit more of that in the Dan Wilson era so far. 6 games, but we're seeing this team play more the way they should be playing baseball, which is just, like I said, overall good to see. I'm not going to dive too much into, you know, if you guys watch the Ryan Divish interview with Marine Layer podcast, if not, highly recommend checking it out. Marine Layer guys do an awesome job. Divish is always an interesting listen. You know, he talked about the team in the offseason, thinks they'll need to trade a starter. And then if the payroll isn't increased, good chance they could trade Randy Arozarena. I'm not going to dive into too much of that right now. I really, that's an off-season thing for me. I'm not saying that's not the case. They may have to do that. He mentioned Logan Gilbert being the trade candidate. I guess I could see it. Castillo would make more sense, but Castillo has the no trade clause, so it could get dicey. You know, I don't want to dive into all that now. It definitely not the most appetizing great discussion by the guys, but, you know, definitely not the most optimistic outlook for the Mariners. And we know that. You know, I've talked about the ownership group. You know, it looks like Jerry's going to be back. Again, things I will dive into more in the offseason. Right now, we still got a season to go. Not saying it's going to happen, but I mean, the Mariners could still win the World Series this year for all we know. So I don't want to dive too much into offseason stuff. If this team was 12 games back, then sure, let's have that discussion because who cares about the game? But there's still enough in it where I'm just going to let that go until the offseason. As soon as the season's done, I'll have some after season thoughts and we'll dive into that a little bit more. But I do highly recommend watching that podcast if you haven't yet. So definitely a good listen. Also of note, the San Francisco Giants put a few guys on waivers. Dairo Estrada, infielder, and the lefty Rogers. There's Taylor and Tyler Rogers, right? I think Taylor's the lefty. Or is it Trevor Rogers? No, Trevor Rogers is another pitcher. I think it's Taylor Rogers. The lefty is on waivers. I think that would be a good pickup for the Mariners. I would look at getting the lefty Rogers in here. It's been a big bugaboo for the Mariners bullpen. You haven't got Gabe Spire back to where he was last season. Saucedo has been really struggling of late. Is probably at best more your second lefty in your bullpen. I would look at trying to acquire Rogers from the Giants. I really think this team could use a strong lefty in the bullpen. 59 strikeouts in 51 innings, better than what they currently have. This bullpen's been through a lot. Brash, Santos, Garcia, Spires drop off. It's been frustrating. So I think that would be something to look into if I was the Mariners. Even Estrada's kind of interesting. I just don't know with JP Crawford getting back in there today, which is good to see. I'll talk about that. I don't know quite where he'd fit, but Rogers for sure is someone that, if you can do it, I would bring Rogers into the bullpen. JP Crawford also activated today. Dom Canzone sent down. Thought maybe they'd wait till September 1st and you don't have to make the roster move. But, you're also at a point in the year where you need all hands on deck. If you had a 6-7 game lead, fine, but you're chasing it. And to get your starting shortstop back is pretty big. I'm glad Leo Rivas sticks. Canzone, I think, was the obvious choice to go down. You've kind of got enough outfielders with Robles healthy. Haniger, Luke Raley can play out there. Dylan Moore can even play out there. So I think you're fine with outfield depth. Not that those guys are all playing great, but you have options there. Infield-wise, Leo Rivas does not deserve to go down. And JP is going to need some days off too, I'm assuming. So you still want to try to get Rivas's bat in the lineup and reward him a little bit. And I don't know if he can play third. I don't know if he has the arm strength. Maybe he can play second. Polanco can DH a little bit. So we'll see how they want to maneuver it. Today was just pretty much a swap. JP goes to short and Rivas gets the day off. Not wild, maybe about JP batting leadoff right away in his first game back. I really don't spend too much time on lineup construction because truthfully, the Mariners lineup just hasn't been good top to bottom. I don't think it's a matter of where they're batting. They just got to play better. But didn't necessarily love JP coming in there right away, being in the top spot. But also the reason that's happening is nobody's really claimed that, right? And I do like Victor Robles being moved down in the lineup. It's kind of a nice bat now to have towards the bottom of the lineup there. So I think that helps for sure. But yeah, but good to have JP back. I know it's been a down year for JP, but if anything, it gives you a little bit more depth. And listen, hopefully you can get that. I talk about that 1 month hot streak you're kind of looking for from everybody. And hopefully JP can give you that. A nice game for the Mariners today. A bullpen day with Rasmussen starting, then Kelly, then Alexander. Mariners have struggled against these bullpen days. The Tigers gave them a ton of fits with the way they did it. And if you listen to AJ Hinch for the Tigers talk about it, he talked about them using the openers and the bulk guys essentially, and it would really throw off teams with platoons that run a lot of platoons. The Mariners run platoons because it forces you to start lefties because you don't know how long they're going to go with the righty, and then you don't know who they're going to go to next out of the bullpen. I think the Mariners have struggled for that very reason with these type of games against opposing pitchers because the Mariners do have guys like Luke Raley, Josh Rojas, Dylan Moore, Mitch Haniger this year, although it's been a reverse platoon split, Mitch Garver, that have had some pretty wild platoon splits this year or platoon players. And, it forces you to start a certain lineup, but then they can go to a lefty right away or another righty or whatever it is, and it can throw off your lineup a little bit. And, one thing I was talking with Mariner Sir about it before the game, we were messaging about it. When you have games like that, you need your stars to step up. These are the type of games where you need Julio, Cal Raleigh, Randy Arozarena, Jorge Polanco, guys that are not the platoon players to step up and have big games in these type of games. And they did. right now. I don't know if Cal and Polanco had big games. We'll look at the box score here. But Julio steps up, Rosarina steps up. That's what you need in these type of games. You need the players that should be everyday guys to be your big factors. And they did that today, and that was good to see because these games have really given the Mariners fits. So it's nice to see the offense produce in a game like that. Luis Castillo, probably not his best start, as we'll look into the box score here. 5 2/3, 6 hits, 2 run, 2 earned, 2 walks, 4 Ks. But a solid start, right? Gets the W. Would have been nice to get that last out in the 6th inning. I think it was Dylan Carlson just got that base hit right up the middle. Not much you can do. It just kind of snuck through. 6 innings, 1 earned run. I'm sure for Luis would have felt a lot better. It was kind of interesting when Dan Wilson came out, took the ball from him. He looked a little frustrated. I think Castillo was just frustrated with himself for not getting the final out. I don't think there was any issue with anything Dan did there, just for the record, because it did look kind of awkward when Wilson came out and took the ball from him. But I think it was just Luis being frustrated more with himself, not getting that final out. Bullpen was tremendous today. I've been critical of the bullpen recently. I think they've had some struggles. They've been battling a lot of injuries as well, but they were absolutely phenomenal today. Austin Voth, an inning and a third with 3 strikeouts. Colin Snyder bounces back after a couple rougher outings with a shutout inning. And then Munoz closes it down with a beautiful 9th inning with a couple strikeouts. Going to Munoz, to me, was fine in the 9th for a couple reasons. He was already warming up in a 5-2 game. You have a day off tomorrow, and you just need to get the W, right? Like, I don't mind so much them doing it. They're 3.5 games back. They need to get these wins. I don't mind going, listen, we're not messing around. Munoz is coming in here. And you don't have anybody else really behind him, right? Like, maybe if you had Jimmy Garcia, Santos, and Brash healthy, you'd stay away from, one of them. But you don't. Go to Munoz, get the W. Let's get into the day off. Plenty of rest, then go to LA and hopefully win a series against the Angels. So I had no problem going to Munoz there. Like I said, bullpen was lights out. Voth, as good as I've seen him with the 3 strikeouts. And interesting that Voth came back out for the 7th inning after getting the final out in the 6th. Usually that's a situation where we've seen Scott take him out. He'll get that final out, then go to somebody else. And I promise I'm not trying to turn all these videos into, oh, Scott was wrong, Dan's right. But it is interesting, just a little difference, right? We've seen Scott kind of go to somebody else. Voth gets that out. Then it's Chargois for the 7th or Snyder for the 7th. So it's just interesting that Dan left him in. There's been some times I thought Scott should have done that, left the reliever in there. And he did that here, or Dan, did that with Austin Voth, and it paid off. Again, early, 6 games, but, Dan pushing the right buttons so far. So that's really good to see. Offensively, Mariners 9 hits, just 1 walk, only 7 strikeouts, much better than yesterday after the dreadful 17 strikeout performance today. JP 0 for 3 with a walk in his first game back. Great game for Julio, 2 for 4, solo home run, a base hit. He was robbed of another base hit in his last at-bat. Man, if we could get Julio to just get hot for a stretch here, Julio. Remember August last year, how just locked in he was. I'm not expecting another August, but something maybe similar to that, because if you get that, I do think this team can do it. I do think they can get in here. And it was good to see him pull the ball inside fastball, pull it for the home run. Great sign. Hopefully it's the start of something. It's about time, right? And of course, every time a player gets my wrath, not that Julio necessarily got my wrath yesterday, but you know what I mean? They seem to have a big game, so it never fails. But good to see from Julio Rodriguez. Hopefully that continues. Cal 0 for 4 DH day. Nice game for Randy Rosarina, 3 for 4 with the solo home run. His second T-Mobile home run, hit 2 home runs in this series against his old mates. Hopefully that's the start of a hot streak for Randy. Polanco was 1 for 4. Rayleigh 0 for 2 with the sac fly. Demo 1 for 3 with the double. Garver 0 for 3. Nice game for Victor Robles, 2 for 3 with the home run as well. And Robles heating back up a little bit. He kind of cooled off. The Linsanity run had ended a little bit for Robles, but he's been hot recently, swinging a better bat. And like I said, it's kind of nice, I think, having him at the bottom of the lineup. Gives you a good hitter down there to turn it over. Again, don't love JP in the leadoff role right away, but I mean, who else, right? Like, I guess it's kind of like pick your poison with this lineup this year, but nice game for the offense overall. Anytime you put up 6 runs, I'm certainly not going to complain. Day off tomorrow, Houston does play. Hopefully you can gain a half game there. And then you have a road trip that is a long road trip, but winnable, right? The Angels are scuffling. They've traded away some pieces since we last saw them. There's no Carlos Esteves, no Luis Garcia. Um, Obviously, you're not going to be seeing Mike Trout the rest of the season. The Angels are giving the Mariners fits, but it is a team that I think the Mariners on paper should be beating. Oakland's played better in the second half, but a team you should be beating. Time for this team to have a big road trip. It is time. Put up or shut up time. St. Louis is a decent ball club. I haven't followed them too much. They're at the end of the road trip. But right now, it's Anaheim and Oakland, and you've got to win these games. No more excuses. I don't care if it's close. I don't care if the Angels just nipped you somewhere. No excuses. You have to go to LA and beat this team. Got to do it. You've put yourself in this position. There's no way around it. Houston's got a tough series with Kansas City, who's now tied for first in the Central, or at least was coming into today. Then they got to go to Cincinnati, who again isn't great, but it's kind of a tough ballpark for teams that haven't played in there. So maybe the Reds can give them some fits. We'll see. Bottom line is the Mariners have got to get this done. You've got 7 games here in your division against teams that just are not that good. And you've got to, I think, well, you got to win 5, right? I mean, it feels like it. I guess you could go 4-3, and Houston could go, 1-6 in their stretch, and okay. But I would think to feel good, really want to go 5-2 here, and not a prediction. Again, I don't really, I don't talk trash. I'm not trying to insult other teams here, but that's what the position the Mariners have put themselves in. Hopefully, getting JP back helps. Hopefully, Julio's starting a hot streak. You're going to have Kirby, Wu, and Miller going in this series, so good test for Brian Wu and Bryce Miller, who've been outstanding. But, they need them. They need these guys to step up. And we'll see. I think Rogers would be an interesting, nice addition for this bullpen. We'll see if he gets to the Mariners on waivers. I think he has to go through the NL first and then over to the AL. So an NL contender may pick him up. I think that's how it works. If I've got it wrong, correct me in the comments. But I think that'd be a nice pickup for the Mariners here for the final 28 games. Nice homestand. Good to see the team playing better, regardless of how that ends up. Nice to see some wins, and good for Dan Wilson with a solid homestand. So hopefully this is the start of it, and hopefully we're coming in to a big, big road trip for the Mariners. That's all I've got. Tomorrow, Mariners are out of town, so we will not have a video tomorrow. Channel members, I will have number 8, my top 10 baseball movies. Probably going to take just the day off tomorrow unless there's some sort of breaking news. Probably won't have a video up tomorrow, so I need a day, this team. But appreciate all of you. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you all Friday for the post-game recap. As always, go Mariners. Peace.